Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glen Sutherland.
Welcome to a new episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. with Glen Sutherland. This week, my guest is Linda Holtz. Linda, let's just start off by telling people who you are.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me on. As I was just mentioning before we came on the recording, is that I love what you're working on. I love the idea of like a Canadian investing in the US. That definitely translates to my story. So I came from another country. I'm originally from France, so definitely close to Canada too. Not geographically, but in culture. And I moved to the US 13 years ago now. Definitely at the time was fresh out of college and didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I found a great job in door-to-door sales, which was probably one of the best experience ever, contrary to popular belief. And eventually I found my way into property management, which was my introduction to real estate. So that's kind of where it all started. That's a little bit of me. Happy to dive in. But again, thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited.
Yeah, no problem. So when you were leaving France and going to the US, the intention wasn't for real estate, or like what you're just like, hey, I just want to go to the US and we'll do something, will work out. We'll figure this out.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's basically how it happened. So at the time, I actually landed in New York because I had to. It was part of the curriculum that I was going through at school. And it was only supposed to be 6 weeks. And here we are, 13 years later. What happened was the following year after that summer, so the 6 weeks that I was initially in New York was during the summer. And so the following school year, I was supposed to do an internship. So I decided if I can find a job in New York, I'll stay. And that's kind of how it happened, except after the job ended, I didn't leave.
So how does that even work? Like, isn't there like visas and things that are required to stay there? Did like the employer have to sponsor you? How did you even be allowed to stay?
Yeah, so definitely I ended up having to go home, of course, at the end of the 6 weeks. I extended my trip. I think I ended up doing 8 so that I would have the time, because I found the job, I would have the time to do like a little bit of on-the-job training and all that. And then I went back home, and I thought I was going back home for like 30 days just to figure out my paperwork. But as you know, since you mentioned it, it's not that easy. And I won't go too much in the weeds, but this happened around August, September time of the year. And so at the time I was applying for a student visa, which there are quotas every single year from, like, they only give a certain amount of visa, a certain number of visas per country. Yeah. And so because it was September in the calendar year, is kind of late. So I definitely ran into a couple of roadblocks and almost didn't make it happen. But eventually it worked out. And there were also some requirements, like the job that I found, it had to be in conjunction with what I was learning in school. And like you mentioned, they had to sponsor me and all of that, which eventually turned into another visa and then a green card. And now I'm here. Now I'm a citizen. I can't believe it, even though it's been a couple of years already. But it was definitely the first challenge that showed me like, hey, when you want something, you got to go for it, which I think is very important in real estate.
Yeah. Oh, and honestly, I think that's the biggest. People always think it's all about the strategies and stuff. And honestly, the people that succeed the most are the ones that go, and the ones that have problems and figure out how to solve problems and get things to the finish line. It's about action and doing, and it's not as much about like, all these technical things. You can figure that out. And honestly, if you hire a coach, you'll be way faster at doing those things and you'll make a lot less mistakes. But it's action. And like, that's what it's troubleshooting, and you can apply it to anything, and you can learn it from doing completely different things. That you
absolutely
can apply to do this. Okay, so let's walk me through this story. So you got there, and you said you got a job at a property management company. Was that related to what you went to school for, or was that something?
No. It really wasn't. So funny story. The first coworker that I ever met once I was in property management, the first coworker that I ever met who had a degree in property management, I met, I think, in 2017, knowing that I entered the industry in 2015. So it was 2 entire years before I found somebody who was like, no, I went to school to be here. Everybody else is kind of like figuring out, everyone has a story of like, I was doing this or I was doing that. I had managerial experience. I had a lot of people have like brokers, real estate, realtors experience, and whatever got them to enter property management, like that's how it happened. So for me, it was definitely through the fact that I was in sales before.
Yeah.
And when I entered my management company, it was through the customer service department. So I was what I was looking for at the time was, hey, I'm good with people, but if I could not be up and on my feet all day, every day, doing door to door, maybe if I could be in a little safer environment with HVAC, that would be nice. And that's how I found that company, having no clue what they even did, like having no clue. I worked for condo management. So having no clue how condominiums work, HOAs, like homeowner association, all that kind of stuff was completely new to me. And I was really recruited to answer the phone, and I was fine with that until I decided to climb the ranks.
Okay, keep me going. How does this? How continue the story? So, okay, so you got the job. You're getting customer service. Like, what kind of jobs do you go through in order to proceed to where you are?
Are you interested in investing in the US? I honestly see Canadians making tons of mistakes, simple mistakes that could be avoided by just a quick phone call. Honestly, I think we should just get on a 15-minute call. You ask me some questions, I answer some questions, and I tell you a little bit about the coaching program. We see if it's a fit. My coaching program is completely different than other people's. What my goal is to help you actually implement the material. All the videos are pre-recorded, so you can just zip through those on your own time. But when you're actually buying property, this is what sets me apart, is that we actually sit down, you do your deal analysis, you have questions, ask me some questions. Let me go through it with you. Let me help you. And this is what's going to set it apart. This is why you're going to avoid mistakes. You're going to miss those little things that you just missed that could cost you a lot of money. Maybe I can see it. Maybe my experience. I've been doing this for a while down in the US. Let me help you. Let's do a quick 15-minute call. If that's of interest to you, go to glensutherland.com and you can book a 15-minute call. Anyway, hope this is helpful. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, so customer service, I was doing basically a lot of like answering the phone and dealing with work orders. Like I was the main point of contact. So whenever residents, whether they were owners or tenants, would call us to report any kind of maintenance, I was the face, I guess, right? Like if somebody came to our office, I was pretty much like the receptionist.
Yeah.
Now, for me, because very early on, I understood that there was an opportunity to grow, I always did a little bit more. So like managers would say, hey, I need to send this email, or I need to like get proposals or bids for that project. And I would always volunteer for all of that kind of stuff. Because I was like, I know that one day it's going to either help me or I'll be in the position where I need that for myself. So I might as well learn that. Learn now. And so eventually I became an assistant. I was promoted to that. And once the company that I was part of, once you become an assistant, you're on track for them to pay for your education to become accredited as a manager. Which again, with property management, it used to be kind of the Wild West. I mean, now they're tightening the screws a little bit. There's still some states where you don't need certifications. There are others where it's required. But even the ones where it's required, like I did that in Chicago, and I think Illinois, by the time I got mine, it was only required for like maybe 3 or 4 years, or like 5 or 6, something like that, where I knew a lot of people who did not have the certification because they had been grandfathered in. Like it was so new. And so anyway, I ended up like going through that. My company was paying for it, thankfully. And that's when they gave me my first properties and eventually my first portfolio. At the time when I first started, I had like 6 properties to take care of. And for the next, my first property I got at the end of 2016. And I left property management a year ago. So for the next 8 years, I did everything from high rise, mid-rise, garden style, single family communities, on site, on portfolio. If it could be managed, I took care of it. And then in the meantime, I also started in 2020, I bought my first property as an investor. So I also did a lot of self-management over the years.
Okay, what did that first property look like? What are we talking about? A house? Are we talking an apartment building? You're talking about a lot of different asset classes here.
Yeah. No, so the first one, it was a triplex.
Okay.
And at the time, it was definitely the biggest thing I could ever think of buying. So what happened was I knew that I wanted to own at least where I lived. And at the time, so because all my family is still back home, right? Like I'm here kind of by myself. I mean, now I got married, so I have my husband's family and all that. But at the time, I really hesitated. Do I invest in America, like I was in Chicago, or do I go back home? And looking at both markets, I decided to invest here. This is where I knew kind of the laws. I was doing a lot of education, bigger pockets, listening to podcasts. And because I was a property manager by then, I also had a very big network of vendors. Like I knew a lot of plumbers, electricians, HVAC guys. So that really gave me the confidence to feel like, okay, I can take that on, especially if that's where I live. So my response to I want to own where I live was, okay, let me house hack a triplex so that I'm not like it's an investment at the same time as where I reside. And that's kind of how it all started. My now husband, then boyfriend, ended up moving in with me around the same time, completely by accident. And so we moved in, we were landlords. That was 2020. So COVID hit, everything at the same time.
Oh my goodness. But also it's got to be, I don't know if that, I was going to say convenient, and I know that's not the right word. I'm living like that, like close to your tenants, but at least like, they know that there's like an eye on this, like really close, like you're right there.
Yeah. And you would think, right? Like so we lived in the middle, from the exterior, the building looked like a house, but inside it was 3 apartments on top of each other. And we were in the middle. So we had somebody above who really thought, oh, it's awesome that you're very close. We always have access to you. Great tenants. At the bottom, we had people who thought they could get away with some stuff. And I'm like, how can you think this? I'm right above you. But it definitely taught us a lot of the good and the bad at the same time. And that's why I'm still very grateful to this property.
So you still have that property?
No, that one we sold when we moved to Texas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going through this story. So now you got this property. Is that the point now where you're like, hey, I want to move to Texas? Or is there something that drew you to Texas to leave Chicago? I don't know if it was landlord laws. I know Chicago's not known for having like great tenancy laws. Was it something like that? Was it even real estate based that drew you to Texas?
Yeah, so I had lived here back when I was in sales. I lived in a lot of different states. My first 2 years here, and Houston was one of those places where I had lived before. Okay. So that was a factor. My husband's family is like, he has a lot of family on his dad's side that lives down here as well. So that also helped. But yes, one of the big reasons that contributed to the whole thing was we know that the number one, landlord laws, but also business laws in general are going to be much easier to deal with in Texas. And the reason I say that is because for a brief moment, we almost considered moving to San Diego. And looking at California versus Texas, at least from a real estate standpoint, it was a very easy choice to make. And so, yeah, those are all the reasons. Obviously, once we decided to leave Chicago, I told my husband I never want to see snow again. So it was also nice that the weather was going to be a little different.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were a number of reasons, but real estate was definitely one of the main ones for sure.
Okay. So, what's the order go? Do you sell the house, sell the triplex in Chicago, and then you just picked up and moved to Texas?
Yeah, basically. So at the time, what happened was I thought I would keep the property in Chicago. Sorry. But when I called my realtor, the realtor who had sold it to me, and I told her like, hey, can you find me a property management? Because I want to move out of state. By that point, it was, I think Q1 or Q2 of 2021. And so, as a lot of people know, it was a great market it was a great seller's market. Interest rates were very low. So everybody was buying whatever they could. And for us, we had done a lot of work on the home. We had bought it with an FHA 203K, which means we had, I think, about $50,000 allowance to do some work. So it wasn't like a gut rehab, but we had added like HVACs, not HVAC, we had added vents to be able to put washer dryer in every unit. We had repainted the 2 rentals. We had redone some flooring and stuff like that. So the home looked a lot better and the market looked a lot better. So my realtor was like, if you're going to move, you can't manage this from afar. You just have to sell. And so that wasn't the plan, but that's what we ended up doing. And then we got down here, started buying a couple of single family homes, but realized pretty quickly, like, hey, if we made this jump to be serious about real estate and because we want to take it to the next level, how can we scale faster? And that was around the time that we found a mastermind for multifamily, for like larger commercial size multifamily, and that's what got us started on that side of things. So now we've been doing that for about a year and a half.
Okay, so when you're doing the larger multifamily, are you depending on how large you're going, are you syndicating these deals?
Yes.
Okay, so that group they taught you how to do the whole syndication, or how did that come about?
When investing in the US, Canadians make so many small mistakes. They assume everything's the same, they don't understand all the intricacies. If you just would like a free guide on some of the common mistakes that I see Canadians making, just go to CanadianInvestingInTheUSA.com/mistakes and check out my free guide. And while you're there, if you want to book a phone call, I'm open. Me personally, not some other person. I'm personally open to doing a 15-minute phone call with anyone, answering some questions, sharing some experiences. So if that's of interest to you, please go ahead and do so.
Yes, absolutely. So they taught us everything about, coming from finding deals, underwriting them, managing them, to like finding investors and capital to actually close on those deals. So we did end up doing our first LP through our first investment that we did. We wanted to do that as passive because we wanted to understand that side of things.
Yep.
And the reason why, by the way, is because with our experience in property management, like my husband did it on and off a little bit too back in the days, we always thought we're going to be asset managers. That will be our role in the syndications that we do. Now, we realized pretty early on that the big guys out there buying big properties, they have asset managers, they have teams already available, and it was going to take us a long time to get there. So we pivoted to being on the investor relations side. And because of that, we wanted to understand the investor experience. We wanted to be able to say, we have been there, done that, alongside with you to our future investors. So the first syndication that we got on, we were passive. And then after that, we did 2 where we were active. And right now we're working on 2 more where we're active as well.
That's awesome. I honestly started the same way too. I bought a whole bunch of single families first, but then I was like, hey, I want to, I think the next step is to do this. And I'm like, okay, easiest step. Let's start by being an LP, invest in someone else's project. And then, I got to see how it flowed and had basically like something that, I don't know, not a kind of a framework to understand how the order of things, how the communication goes, how the webinars go, how the communication with the investors goes, and how often, and then just it was just a good way. And I collected all the documents, and you're like, okay, mind you, you're gonna have to get an attorney to redraw them, but you collect all that stuff, and then but now you got a pretty good idea of it. And then I did the same thing. I hired a coach. They're not cheap.
No, they're not.
Yeah, and I did the same thing and went and bought some buildings as well. So I love it. That's a awesome story. So I don't know, what do we want to talk about next? Do you want to wait a second. When we were talking beforehand, you said something about coupleship. So when did your husband or was it boyfriend, when did he come into the business, and when did you guys kind of start working together?
Yeah, so that's a very funny story too. So basically, I always like to share it. So I met my mother-in-law on a girls' trip to Cancun. And so my mother-in-law is a property manager, has been a property manager for the last 15 years. So it's definitely a family affair. And my sister-in-law, her daughter, my husband's sister, has been an assistant manager for, I think, also over a decade for sure. Okay. And so I knew them first through mutual relationships in the industry, and we had some like friends in common who were vendors, and we ended up going on this girls trip where I kind of knew of them, but it was mutual friends, right? So I didn't know them personally. Yeah. And it was on that trip that my mother-in-law said, like, hey, I have a son, you should meet him. And you always think those things are not going to work out. Yeah, exactly.
All right,
it's like
sure.
moms always say that their son is the best.
Yeah.
But I guess she knew best because it worked out. And the reason why I tell this story is because between her experience, my sister-in-law's experience, and my husband had worked in property management before, from the time that we decided, like when he and I met, I already knew that I wanted to buy something. But again, we were just dating. So I ended up buying it by myself, I guess. Like on paper, I owned it. But we moved in together from like the very first day. And from day one, he knew like you were going to be the landlords. We had never been landlords per se. We had always taken care of other people's properties,
Yeah.
but we knew what that looked like.
Yeah.
And something that also happened, good or bad for him, is that because COVID hit, he was sent to work remotely very early on.
Yeah.
But me being a manager, I was considered essential. So I was not. So he was thrown into it even more than me because he was the one who not only was on site like I was at night and on weekends, but even during the day, he was the one keeping an eye on everything. So it was definitely an interesting situation. But yeah, the long story short is that he's been on from the beginning with me. And by the time we decided to turn our multifamily journey into an actual business, we had gotten married like 3 months prior. So that's why now the company is called M2RE, because it stands for Married to Real Estate.
I love that's a great name.
Thank you.
So what's your roles? Like what parts do you do? What parts does he do? And like is there overlap in that?
Yes, there's definitely some overlap. We both really, working with investors. Sometimes there's people that I know that he doesn't, or vice versa. Sometimes we talk to people who know us as a couple. They want to talk to the both of us. But really, he's more like on the market research side of things. Like he loves numbers. He loves to dive deep into which market is good, which submarket, like what are the numbers, where's the path of progress to buy the next asset. For me, I'm more, like I said, on the asset management, where I speak the lingo of all the capex and the vendors and the contracts and all of that. But I'm also very much so the network butterfly, the social butterfly, and the face of the company. And so that's why I do a lot of appearances like this, where people sometimes are going to be like, they know my story, they know I invest with my husband, and that's the name of the company. But he's also a little bit of like the exclusive side of the team, where it's like, if you get to know him, you're special. Because I'm the one who's out there, and he's a little bit less than that. But we're definitely both working on the business for sure.
If you were like going to do this all over again, would you change anything? Would there some things that you're like, I would have skipped this or I would have done that differently?
No. And the reason why is because for me, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And I really do think that if even the good, the bad, and the ugly, everything taught us how to be here now. And even the good, bad, and ugly that we're going through today or tomorrow or next month will only position us better for the future. So yes, it's real estate. I would have loved to buy in LA County in 2008, right?
Yeah.
But beyond that wild dream, no, there's nothing I would do differently. I think that it all shaped who we are today as investors.
I love that. And honestly, I just even love our conversation because I've talked to like so many people that syndicate deals, and the conversation almost always like has like a salesy like twang to it, and this doesn't. And like honestly, it's refreshing if that's the right word. Like because a lot of people they're always selling, and in honesty, I think people getting to understand and know you and understand where you came from is more powerful. At least I know Canadians react a lot better to a real person than a sales pitch.
Yes.
They're like as soon as you start selling they get, I don't know what the word is, but you get like, oh no, I'm out. I'm not being sold to. Like it's much better to have like a authentic sort of way of talking.
Yeah. And I think that for me, that's part of the core values that we have as a company. Is our three values are family, loyalty, and honesty, like transparency. And that comes from that. That comes from the fact that we want to do business with people. Like every time I get on a call with a potential investor, I always say, okay, so who are you? Like, what type of ice cream do you like? Do you have kids? Where do you live? What do you do for fun? Because at the end of the day, real estate is all about relationship. And it's like, yeah, maybe we could do deals together, maybe not. What matters is how can I help you human to human? And I'm a firm believer too that if we could all help just one person, we don't have to change the world. That's where it all starts.
I love it. Before I let you go, let's actually talk about your company. If people are interested in this, they want to like, hey, I want to know more about Linda. I want to know more about Married to Real Estate. If I want to like do that, where do they find you? How do they contact you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm super active on LinkedIn. All of the crazy ideas that come through my mind about real estate, that's where I post them. And it's my name, Linda Holtz. I don't have like a crazy tagline or something. And then marriedtorealestate.com is our website. So it's married the number 2 and then realestate.com, just all one word. So on there you'll have my email, my phone number, same for my husband, our calendar if you want to schedule a call. All of that is on the website. But yeah, Linda Holtz on LinkedIn is where I spend all of my time. So looking forward to helping out or just having fun with whoever contacts me there.
I love it. And you can say no to this, but I think we should do another podcast in like 6 months, and we'll go into like an actual property or something, and like go into like the details or something. But like this was awesome, and I wouldn't want to change this either. I loved the authenticness to this one instead of a salesy pitch, and maybe we'll go down the other side of the path of it and do it again. And if you're open to it.
Yeah, I would love that. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because so the first LP that we did, I did a webinar before where I presented that versus the triplex. So like going into all the numbers, but also what it looks like in terms of time, right?
Yeah.
Because for me, what I love the most about syndication, yes, it's true that there's going to be less control because you're part of a group as opposed to doing it yourself, but the time saved. Like as a property manager, I didn't want to be a landlord. So that's got to say a lot. And so I did a webinar before where I presented like, yes, the returns were better on the side where we owned it by ourselves. But, the amount of time was also much higher. And for us, we'd rather own 10% of a watermelon, but not have to do anything because that one was a comparison to passive investing. So obviously on the active side, I can't say you do nothing.
No,
but yeah, I would love
that.
to do something like that. Yeah, for sure.
No, it's a lot of people just need action, and action gets momentum. And then, like even for myself, if I was going to start and go straight into organizing my own syndication off the start, it would have been just a wall to try and climb. But if you like, either you're doing an LP investing first, or you're doing some houses first or something, and you get the feel, and your stuff goes, and you're starting to talk to people, and it's kind of like, it's not so, I don't know, you don't have the same pushback. Like it's moving, you're talking to people already about other things, and it kind of more organic, I guess it goes, instead of having to force it. So and
I think it helps build confidence too. I mean, like I said, for me, being a property manager gave me the confidence to be like, okay, I can tackle on step 1, and then I can tackle on step 2. And so for us now, we're all about that. We're all about giving back, where it's like, hey, look, it's not as big as it looks. Let me show you step 1. And again, like I said, whether you invest with me, the neighbor, another state, I don't care. I just want to be able to show you like this is not as big as it looks. So I'm all for it.
Anyway, love this conversation. This was great. Linda, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me again. I love it.
That was a nice video. Bye.